Paul was a young man who lived in a small village called Green Valley. Though only 21, he carried a heavy responsibility since he was 5 years old when his parents passed away. Paul had been the one to take care of his elder sister, who was about to get married, and his younger brother, who was still in school. Paul woke up early every day, even before the sun, and went to the vegetable market to buy the freshest produce. He knew the villagers valued healthy food, so he always ensured to get the best vegetables available. Paul sold his vegetables in 2 ways: by walking through the streets with a handcart from morning to afternoon, calling out fresh vegetables for sale. His voice was familiar to everyone, and they trusted him because of the quality of his produce. In the evening, he set up a small stall near his home where people could buy vegetables after a long day's work. Despite having other competitors in the area, Paul's friendly nature and the freshness of his vegetables made him the preferred seller. Though his prices were slightly higher, the villagers didn't mind because they knew they were getting the best. Paul worked tirelessly every day to provide for his family, and his hard work allowed his sister to prepare for her wedding. He knew that his parents would be proud of the way he had taken on the role they had left behind. However, Paul's success didn't go unnoticed by the 2 other vegetable sellers in the area, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Brown. Though they sold their produce at lower prices, people still preferred Paul's vegetables. The 2 competitors grew envious, feeling overlooked despite working just as hard. They decided to find out Paul's secret. They followed Paul one day, observing how he interacted with his customers. They saw how he greeted each person with a smile, offered the best vegetables, and took the time to listen and chat with them. Inspired by this, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Brown tried to imitate Paul's approach, shouting louder and trying to be as friendly, but it didn't work. People still walked past their stalls and went to Paul. Frustrated, they began plotting ways to ruin his reputation. During this time, Paul noticed an old woman who passed by his stall every evening. She would stop and inquire about the vegetables, but never bought any. She lived alone in a small cottage, and Paul couldn't help but wonder why she never made a purchase. One evening, as Paul was closing his cart, he decided to approach the woman. "Ma'am," he said kindly, "I see you asking about the vegetables every day but never buying any. Is there a reason why?" The old woman looked at him with sadness in her eyes. "Your vegetables are the best in the village," she replied, "but I am alone and don't have enough money to buy them. I survive by begging." Moved by her situation, Paul offered, "From now on, come to my cart every evening before I close. I'll give you whatever vegetables are left for free. It's the least I can do." The woman hesitated, unwilling to accept charity. "Oh no, dear boy. I can give you what I've saved from begging," she said, pulling out a small amount of money. Paul shook his head. "Please, take them for free. I have plenty, and it would help me." Reluctantly, the woman agreed. From then on, she came to Paul's stall every evening, and he gave her a bag of fresh vegetables with a warm smile. However, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Brown, still watching from a distance, grew angrier at Paul's kindness. They couldn't stand seeing him help the old woman and felt their jealousy growing stronger. They began planning ways to get rid of him once and for all. One evening, as Paul was walking home, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Brown ambushed him on a deserted road. "So, Paul," Mr. Smith sneered, "you think you're better than us, selling your expensive vegetables and giving them away to beggars." Mrs. Brown joined in. "You're getting too big for your boots. We're going to teach you a lesson." Paul was taken aback. and tried to stay calm. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "We want you to leave the village," Mr. Smith demanded. "We don't want competition like you here." Just as Paul feared the worst, the old woman appeared, having witnessed the confrontation. "Help! Somebody help!" she screamed. Her cries startled Mr. Smith and Mrs. Brown, and when they realized they had been seen, they turned and fled into the night. Paul, shaking with relief, thanked the old woman. "You saved my life." "I don't know how to thank you," he said, grateful for her courage. The old woman smiled. "You've been so kind to me, Paul. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing." Paul, moved by her words, asked if she would consider staying with him and his family. "You've become like family to me, and I want you to stay with us," though hesitant at first. The old woman agreed, touched by his offer. "Well, if you're sure, I would be happy to stay." Paul introduced the woman, Mrs. Johnson, to his siblings, and they welcomed her with open arms. Mrs. Johnson soon became a cherished member of their household, offering wisdom and kindness that Paul and his siblings had long been missing. Paul's sister Mary found comfort in Mrs. Johnson's advice, especially as she prepared for her own wedding. Mary often spent afternoons with her, sharing thoughts about the future. Paul's younger brother, Michael, came to adore Mrs. Johnson as a grandmother figure, enjoying her stories of the village's past. For Paul, having Mrs. Johnson around made life easier. She helped with household chores, and her presence eased the burdens of providing for his family. Dinner time became a time of bonding, and the home felt warmer than it ever had before. One day, Paul sat down with Mrs. Johnson and expressed his gratitude. "I can't thank you enough for coming into our lives. You've brought so much peace and joy to our home," he said sincerely. Mrs. Johnson smiled, her eyes soft with affection. "Paul, you and your siblings have been a blessing to me too. I never expected to find such a loving family." Paul's heart swelled with happiness. He knew that Mrs. Johnson's presence was more than just having another person in the house. It was about having someone who truly cared for them. As they sat together, Paul silently vowed to cherish and protect the happiness they had found as a family.